Today, we are jumping in to part 4 of a series that we're calling You Asked For It, because every single one of these sermons was inspired by a topic that was presented by you. And I'm super excited about today, and I don't normally do this. I don't normally kind of like look in the review mirror and talk about how great last week was. But if I'm allowed to do that, I do want to say, God, I just really enjoyed last Sunday. I can't quite put my finger on what it was, but I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of reasons. The message was a personal favorite of mine. It spoke to me. There were some people that served for the very first time on our teams last Sunday. We had people make fresh starts with God. We had a couple who drove 2.5 hours just to attend church here. They didn't even know anybody. They just saw what was happening and was like, man, we want a piece of that. Drove 2.5 hours to come be a part of it. One of my buddies, he's in here right now, Peyton Doster. It was his first time as an official Overflow family member in the room. And to top all that off, we, for the first time, got to debut Kanye West's Jesus is King album during our pre-experience music for your listening pleasure. Is anybody else enjoying that album? I feel like if I am supposed to make a public statement about it or something, it's a good thing, okay? Kanye's saved. He loves Jesus. We like that the gospel of Jesus is getting preached at the end of the day. We love it. And so we're all about it here. But even with all that stuff, as great as all that is, it wasn't even my favorite part of last Sunday, because I got to do something really special last Sunday that I don't normally get to do. Last week, I got to join our kiddos during the first part of the worship experience for their You Asked For It series. For the last couple of weeks, they have been submitting questions, their own questions, and I actually got to go over there and answer some of them. And let me tell you, they were the most adorable and heart-wrenching questions. They were great. We're raising up young theologians over here, because they had some very typical kid questions, okay? Why did Jonah get eaten by the whale? Yes, of course, you had to know. That's like the most Sunday school question that you could possibly ask in church. And then we had another question. Some kid said, how did God make the world? That's actually a pretty good question, because it's like the easy answer is, well, I mean, he spoke it into existence. But like, how does that work? Right? I don't know. I felt like the whole time I was over there, that's what it was. I was like, well, next question. And then we had another kid, he said, this was a great one. Stumped me. He said, who wrote the Bible? I was like, well, when we get to like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, I got those. After that, like when you look backwards, I'm not really sure who it was that did that. I know we think it's Moses. We're not really sure. We weren't there. We don't know. There's no like, and they're like, no, God wrote the Bible. And then I'm like, well, technically, he didn't come down to earth and take a pen and paper and write the Bible. Like, he inspired it, but he didn't write it. Imagine trying to explain that to a kid. They're like, I don't get it. And I'm like, yeah, I don't get it either, to be honest with you. And the questions got even deeper from there. Who made God? This is not supposed to be what we're doing. You're supposed to ask me about like the fruit and, I don't know, Daniel and the lion's den, not who made God. Then they even, of all those questions, there was one that really took me off guard, and it was my favorite question of the day because it was super outside the box. All the other kids were asking about the Bible and all this different stuff, and then we had one kid, this was his question. He goes, how do you preach with so much energy? I loved it. It was one of my favorite things, because if you think about it, we're in McKenzie, Tennessee. Most of our kiddos have never seen a preacher get as loud or as intense as I get. Honestly, most of you didn't grow up with a preacher that gets as loud or as intense as I get. So when I heard that, I was like, wow. It's actually a really, really great question. The more I thought about it, I realized, started asking myself, why do I preach with so much energy? And I thought it was such a good question that it's actually the inspiration for our sermon today. Because the answer to that question, how do you preach with so much energy? It is not coffee. It was funny. That was one of the kids' responses. It got said out loud. How do you preach with so much energy? And the kid's like, coffee. He answered for him. I'm like, I'm supposed to be giving the answers. Drew and Bethany's daughter was just, she answered every one of the questions. I was like, switch with me. You get up here. You know what you're talking about. It was amazing. Coffee? And I'm like, no, it's not coffee. And anyone who knows me knows I like Bang energy drink. It's not Bang energy drinks. Peach and mango, blue raz, sour heads. If you want to get me a gift, though. I'm not saying that you have to, but if you wanted to, you can. And it's not because I just like getting extra cardio when I'm up here. And I don't preach loudly because I think that volume equals anointing. I know volume doesn't equal anointing. But I do have an answer for you as to how I preach with so much energy. And if I could sum that answer up into one word, it would be the word passion. I am passionate about people hearing the good news of Jesus, man. I'm passionate about discovering more of God every single day. I'm passionate about seeing marriages get restored. I'm passionate about people stepping into purpose. I'm passionate about people encountering the same love and the same power and the same grace of God that's wrecked my life so many times, man. I'm passionate. It's just who I am. It's not because I'm a pastor. I promise you, I've lived plenty of years as not a pastor. And passion for God still just, it consumes my life because I remember who I was before. I remember being the kid who didn't care anything about God, and yet God was recklessly pursuing me. I remember how many times I let God down. How many times He should have just given up on me. And I remember, and I know to this day, how lazy I am, and how mean I am, and how selfish, and how faithless, and how disobedient I can tend to be sometimes. And yet I also know how good He is, and how merciful He is, and how kind and how patient, how wonderful, how amazing He's been to me through every single one of those moments. And so when I talk about why it is I'm so passionate, and when I jump up on a chair in the middle of a worship set and try and get everybody to get going, and when you see me sweating, and when you see me screaming, and when you see me raising my hands, and when you see me jumping, man, it's not because I'm just a pastor, and it's not because I've always been that way, because I haven't been that way, man. If I could take it back to an old Pentecostal church and somebody asked me why it was I am the way that I am, I would tell them, because when I think of His goodness and what He's done for me, when I think of His goodness and how He set me free, y'all ain't ready. I know somebody is, and I'm telling you, when I think about God, passion. Someone's ready to do a praise break right now. We'll get the flags out. We'll take off running. Y'all don't test me. I did not grow up conservative, young outlet. No. I grew up in a church where seeing someone spin during worship, it wasn't anything new. We were passionate. Man, when I feel that passion rise up on the inside of me. Give it up for Noah and Gallien, by the way, for that right now. They didn't know that was coming till this morning. When I feel that passion on the inside of me, it's like, I can't push it down. It hurts to try and not let it out. I mean, honestly, like, I wish sometimes that I could preach regular sermons. I wish I could give you a few points, and I wish I could make you laugh a few times, say a few jokes, and hold hands, and enjoy our Sunday, and leave church. I wish that I didn't always have to destroy my vocal cords every time I preach, and I wish that my shirt wasn't always soaking wet by the time I was done. I mean, I'm telling you, my Sunday afternoons would be a lot better if every time I didn't get done preaching, I didn't have to feel like I was about to fall over. It'd be way easier to preach with the same kind of passion that some people in here worship with. Gone, gone, He is gone. Yeah, man. It'd be way easier to preach with the kind of passion that some of y'all listen with. Oh, yeah, that's good. Oh, yeah. Oh, it'd be way easier to preach like that, but man, even when I try and take it easy, I can't because I feel it. I feel it start rising up on the inside of me. I feel like Jeremiah in chapter 20, verse of the book of Jeremiah, chapter 20, he says, his word, it's in my heart, and it's like a fire shut up in my bones. And I'm telling you, hidden on the inside of some of you, and for some of you, it's way down deep, all right? But I promise you, on the inside of every person in this room, there's a passion, like a fire shut up in your bones. I know you haven't experienced it yet, but it's there. And you need to know it's there because it's important for you to know it's there. It is so important. And I thought that question was so good that today, that's what we're going to talk about. You excited, Dakota? I'm excited. We're going to talk about passion this morning. If you're taking notes, the title of our message today is this: Protect Your Passion. Say that. Say protect your passion. Now look at someone, say protect your passion. We're going to be at John chapter 2 this morning, verses 13 through 17. John 2, 13 through 17. Let's jump in. This is what it says. It was nearly time for the Jewish Passover celebration, so Jesus went to Jerusalem. In the temple area, he saw merchants selling cattle, sheep, and doves for sacrifices, and he also saw dealers at tables exchanging foreign money. So this is what Jesus does. Jesus made a whip from some ropes, and he chased them all out of the temple. He drove out the sheep and the cattle, and he scattered the money changers' coins all over the floor, and he turned over their tables. Then going over to the people who sold the doves, he told them, "Get these things out of here. Stop turning my Father's house into a marketplace." And then his disciples remembered this prophecy from the scriptures. Passion, say passion. Passion for God's house will consume me. Passion will consume me. Now, the last few weeks, I have been diligent in telling you guys a little bit more about my high school sports experience. And if you've been listening, then it's not going to come as a surprise when I tell you my junior season of basketball was like super unimpressive. We had 28 games and we won 5 of them, which left us at a looming 5-23 record. And the sad part about this entire situation is that we were pretty confident that that's what our record was going to look like before the season ever even started, because we didn't really need to go out there and play to tell you if we were going to win. All we had to do was look on the schedule and see which school we were playing, because sometimes it was like we could see, and this is I'm not picking on any of these schools that I'm about to name. They're just smaller towns like South Fulton was. When we saw schools in towns like that, like Gleason, Greenfield, Bradford, Fulton City, we knew we might actually have a chance to put a W up there. But then when we saw schools that went by the names of Westview, Union City, Lake County, Humboldt, we knew our chances for getting that win were about 0. We knew it right off the bat. And so I remember one night when we were at Humboldt about to play them, we were lined up to go do our layups. We were in our layup line. But as we were getting ready to run out there, we were watching Humboldt in their layup line. And it turns out that they didn't even need a layup line because none of them did layups. They were dunking, all of them, every single one of them. And it wasn't these soft dunks. It was like tomahawks. Like, this stuff's not even legal in Tennessee. You can't dunk before a game in Tennessee. And they're out here hanging on the rim, slapping the backboard, throwing alley-oops to each other. And we're like a bunch of third graders at an NBA game. Intimidated, freaked out. Like, I don't even want to go shoot layups right now. Our crowd is cheering for them. Throwing alley-oops, and our crowd's like, oh! And we are too, kind of. We're like, oh my God, you see that? Oh my God. We're like, bro, you're about to get dunked on tonight. We're looking at our teammates. We're like joking on them. You're about to get dunked on tonight. And our coach notices our frightened faces. And he runs over there to us. And he's like, boys, come here, bring it in. And in this attempt to motivate us, he gets us in this circle and he said, now, let me be honest with you guys. These boys are taller than you. They're faster than you. They can jump higher than you. They're more athletic than you. They can shoot better than you. They can rebound better than you. And they got a deeper bench than we do. We're like. And after the worst attempt at a pregame speech, he ends it with this. He said, but we got heart. Come on, team on three. 1, 2, 3, team. And he took off running. And we were like, heart, team. But we listened to him. We heard what he had to say. We went out there. We gave it our all. I'm talking, we worked our tails off, man. We were like, man, let's make an upset happen tonight. This is going to be awesome. I mean, we went after it. And you want to know what happened that night? We got destroyed. I'm talking, we're terrible, okay? We got destroyed. Here's the problem. He said we had heart, but what he didn't take into consideration is that Humboldt had heart too. And so what happened is, this was the lineup. Athletic ability, jump higher, shoot better, rebound better, deeper bench, heart, compared to our heart. And so those hearts just canceled out, and it left us with, they can jump higher, they can rebound better, they're more athletic, they're faster, they're a 10 times better team than you are. And we went out there and we got destroyed, okay? And God bless Coach Frazier for his attempt at giving us that speech. He did what he could. He didn't have much to work with. But the concept still remains true. And the concept he was trying to teach us is the fact that passion matters. And it does. Passion matters, and it doesn't just matter in the context of South Fulton High School basketball. And it doesn't just matter within general life. No, passion matters within your walk with God. Passion's huge. I think passion's the reason that we find this story located at the beginning of the book of John. And it's actually weird that this story is located at the beginning of the book of John, because if you read in Matthew and in Mark and in Luke, you read those Gospels, this story is at the very end. But then when you get to John, it's in chapter number 2. And so some people read that and they're like, is like John's Gospel reliable? Did this happen twice? Does John have ADD? Like what's going on here? Why is it at the, and we get so caught up in why is this at the beginning of the book of John, but don't let the placement of that passage mess you up, because it was put there on purpose. And this is totally aside, but I hope someone heard that alliteration just then. The placement of that passage mess you up because it was put there on purpose. That has nothing to do, but I caught it just then. And I wanted someone in here to appreciate that just happened and that I didn't mess that whole thing up. But don't let the placement of where this is mess you up. The book of John is way different than the other 3 gospel accounts. If you've ever read it, you know how different it is. Matthew, Mark, and Luke are called the synoptic gospels, and it's because many of their timelines and their events fall in the same order. But the book of John is written a lot differently, and it's nothing to be scared of. It's actually okay, because John's point in writing his version of the gospel wasn't to tell us when Jesus did this or what Jesus said or how he did it. John's point in writing his version of the gospel wasn't to tell us when or why Jesus did or said what. It was to paint a picture of who Jesus is. When John put his gospel together, he didn't put it with the intention of us being able to use it as a chronological timeline. He put it there because he was trying to tell the story of who the man Jesus is by putting his stories in and putting them in an order that we would begin to open up to the person of Jesus. Not just his actions, not just the dates, but the person of who Jesus is. And so this event appearing in John chapter 2, it's not an accident at all. First impressions lay the groundwork for any relationship that you're in. And I believe that God wanted to make sure that from the get-go, we knew exactly who Jesus was. He wanted to make sure that we knew that Jesus wasn't some apathetic, passionless, dull, boring, lame loser who walked around holding sheep and crying all the time. That's not the Jesus that we serve. I know that a lot of pictures make him out to be that guy, but he didn't have blue eyes, first of all, because I know that's the picture you're thinking of anyways, but that's not who Jesus was. Jesus was the exact opposite of that. We see this story and we find out that Jesus was this intensely strong-spirited man who walks up into the temple and starts kicking tables over and knocking stuff on the floor and raising his voice. And he brings in a whip and he runs the animals out. And the Bible says that all of this was done in the name of passion. I believe that this story is where it is because from the onset, God wanted to make sure that we knew passion matters. Passion matters. It's a part of who Jesus was. And if it's a part of who Jesus was, you better know it needs to be a part of who you and I are. See, man, when I think about us as a church, and I think about everything we're about to step into and everything we're about to have, I can just as quickly recall a lot of things that we don't have. We don't have leaders that have been doing this thing for 20 years. Okay, we're all a bunch of rookies. That's not a secret. We don't have 10 millionaires to bring our vision to life. We don't have thousands of members. We don't have the most flawless discipleship systems. We don't have a staff with benefits. But you want to know what we do have? We got passion, baby. I'm telling you, if there's anything that you're going to figure out from the moment you walk in that door and meet anybody on any of these teams, it's that we got passion. Our guest experience team is passionate about making sure that people feel honored. Our production team they're impulsively passionate about making sure that the atmosphere is electric. Our worship team is passionate. Our kiddos team is passionate. Our leaders, every part of this church and what we do here, it's passionate. It's who we are. It's passion. Man, to be honest with you, I'm convinced that passion is actually the only reason this church even made it this far. Because the reality is, you put the stuff on paper, this should not be happening still. But you want to know why it is? It's because of a bunch of people with passion. It's because way before there was a Highland campus on the horizon, and way before Rule King called, and way before we were about to have some really cool lights, and way before there were any crowds, there were 11 people who had a fire on the inside of them to see some college kids experience the power of God. And those people, they didn't know all the right answers. They didn't do everything right, and that's okay. Because God's not looking for perfect people who know all the right answers and who have all the experience. God is just simply looking for people who are sick and tired of passionless Christianity. Is anybody in here sick and tired of passionless Christianity? Oh, it makes me sick, man. I hate it, and I'm not calling anybody else out because passionless Christianity points back to me as much as it applies to anybody else. But man, I'm tired of it. We just come to church because that's just tradition. That's what you do on Sundays. We just come to church. We just do it to what? Check the box off. Feel good about ourselves. Man, we got up. We went to church. We served on our team. Now we're good. Passionless Christianity, man. People who are completely unconcerned about ever experiencing any kind of growth or change whatsoever. That's the thing that irritates me about myself the most, is because I have a tendency, if I don't watch out, to just slip right on into complacency. To just go through the motions, just try and serve God without any zeal, without any passion at all, no hunger to discover new things of God, no desire to seek God on my own. And then when I do try and seek God on my own, it's always contained in that 30 minutes that was reserved for reading my Bible and prayer. It never actually comes out of that 30 minutes because it is just a checklist, right? And the moments when we sing the worship song, and yet we never actually engage with God. Sing a whole song. We don't even know what the lyrics were because we weren't really paying attention. We were just kind of looking at the screen, and it irritates me. It irritates me about myself. And if you're there with me, then no, we're not alone. We're not the only ones who don't prefer passionless living God is not a big fan of passionless living. Look at Revelation chapter 3, verses 15 through 16. This is God talking to the church. And know, in Revelation, it's good to know that when we hear this isn't, we can apply this directly. God is not just talking to one specific group of people. He's talking to the church. So we can take this as a word from the Lord for us in many seasons. And this is what it says. He says, I know your deeds, that you're neither hot nor cold. I wish that you were one or the other. So because you're lukewarm, you're neither hot or cold, I'm about to spit you out of my mouth. God's not a fan of passionless living and passionless Christianity. You got to protect your passion. When I think about a passionate person in the Bible, I think about the Apostle Paul. Because God is looking for someone to whom he can entrust the responsibility and the influence to not only carry the gospel to the Gentiles, but to write like half of the New Testament, knowing that this person was going to do it. He's looking for someone that he can give the responsibility to go and be the most effective missionary of all time. And he doesn't just choose anybody. He found a guy who went by the name of Saul at the time, but who was consumed with passion. Saul wasn't just attending the synagogue. He wasn't just going with the flow and doing his thing and doing the bare minimum. Saul was, in the name of God, mind you, passionately imprisoning and persecuting and even murdering Christians. And Jesus saw that passion and he said, I think I can do something with that. I think I can work with that. It reminds me of Josh. I always pick on him, but I'm not picking on him right now. It reminds me of him. Because if I think of someone who's passionate about whatever they're into, Josh Crawford is the man when it comes to passionate. He's going to do whatever he does with passion. And before he was ever serving God, he was running from God as passionately as he could. I mean, living the absolute furthest lifestyle that he could possibly think of. And yet, even in the middle of that, God could see the potential. He could see that, man, maybe this passion was pointed in the wrong direction, but it's there. And when we get back to the story of Paul, unfortunately for Stephen, he was a martyr. Unfortunately for Stephen and for some of the other disciples, Paul's passion was at best a little misdirected in the beginning. He wasn't lacking passion. He was just passionate about the wrong things. And I find myself in this same predicament all the time. I'm looking for passion, and I won't feel a passionate drive to get up and go to the gym, but it's not because I'm not passionate. It's just because I'm more passionate about sleeping. I want to find that passion to get up before I come to work and to pray and read my Bible and to spend some time with God. And then I don't, and it's not because I'm not passionate. It's because I was just more passionate about watching the 3rd episode of Limitless the night before. I'm arguing with Sam, and it's like I'm looking for the passion to admit that I was wrong and to say I'm sorry. And it's not that I don't have passion. It's just that I am more passionate about constantly needing to win and constantly needing to be right. This is what I'm saying. If you're in here and you feel a little bit indifferent or lethargic or passionless toward your life or toward your calling or toward your walk with God, I want to make sure you know that you don't need more passion. You need better passion. You need to be passionate about better things. See, everybody in this room has passion. I read an article the other day where a sociologist was saying that this generation of Americans is the least passionate group of people that have ever walked the earth. And I hear people say stuff like that all the time, especially about the younger generations. Every older generation says it about the generation behind them. Oh, they're just so passionless. They don't know the meaning of hard work. and they spend all their time on social media and playing video games, and they don't care about their grades. And while I'll agree that a lot of people don't know the meaning of hard work and that we waste tons of time on Instagram and we waste our lives playing Call of Duty, I don't agree that any of that communicates a lack of passion. In fact, I don't think there's a person sitting in this room that struggles with a lack of passion. On the contrary, I think we are tremendously passionate. We spend 60 hours every single week at work trying to make a little bit of extra cash. We will miss out on sleep and food to play video games. We'll check our Instagram and our Facebook every 5 minutes. We haven't missed an episode of Grey's Anatomy since it debuted in 2005, and Lord knows we are passionate about teams that do not matter, teams that aren't even good. We are not passionless. Are you kidding me? We're not passionless. We're just passionate about stupid things. Oh, we're super passionate. It's just about the wrong stuff. See, we should be passionate about our families, but we're more passionate about celebrities' families. We spend more time watching other people's families than we do interacting with our own. We should be able to passionately worship God, but instead, we've directed that passion that's reserved for God because it is. That's why there's passion on the inside of you, is because He gave it to you. That passion that's reserved for God, we've actually turned and we've pointed it toward our favorite football team. We should be passionately, for some of you singles in here, you should be passionately searching for a husband that'll lead you toward God. Or you should be passionately searching for a wife that's not afraid to go lay her hands on your kids when they get sick and pray for them and believe in Jesus' name that they'll be healed. But instead, we are passionately searching for somebody who's really good at bed. Don't get quiet on me, overflow. Are you protecting your passions? Are you aiming them? Or are you passionate about a bunch of stuff that just doesn't matter? Jesus wasn't just passionate. It says that his passion was pointed. Jesus said, I am consumed with passion for my Father's house. His passion was protected. His passion was aimed. You got to protect your passions, and you got to crucify the other passions that shouldn't be there. You got to make sure you know which passions matter and which ones don't, because the ones that don't need to go. Galatians chapter 5, verse number 24. Those who belong to Christ Jesus, meaning more than likely everybody in this room, it says they've crucified the flesh with its passions and its desires. You need to know, you're in a constant battle between the passions of your flesh and the passions of your spirit. The passions of your flesh want you they love when you binge watch Netflix. The passions of your spirit are pulling you to spend more time in the presence of God. The passions of your flesh are trying to pull you toward having sex before you get married. The passions of your spirit are dragging you toward holiness and toward purity. There's a war going on between your passions. The passion of your flesh wants you to attend a church service. The passion of your spirit wants you to engage in God when you're at the service. You're in a war. Now, of course, your passion for God should obviously outweigh your passion for anything else. But if you have a real passion for God, it's going to overflow into every other area of your life. Colossians 3:23, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as if you're working for the Lord and not for human masters. Meaning, if you got a passion for God, like really got a passion for God, you got a passion for prayer, and you got a passion for worship, and you got a passion for giving, you got a passion for serving, you got a passion for helping people, then all that passion should also result in a passion for your marriage, and a passion for your kids, and a passion for your homework, and a passion for your career, and a passion for every other area, and passion for the people in your lives that get on your nerves the most. Your passion for God should turn into passion for everything else. And I hope when you hear the word passion, you don't confuse it with the word excitement. Because passion and excitement are two completely different things, okay? Excitement is momentary. Passion perseveres. Excitement only lasts for a little while. Passion is permanent. If you're a Tennessee Vols fan, and this is I'm not joking on Tennessee Vols fans. I'm not. I'm honestly not. Because you're going to understand why I'm saying this. If you're a Vols fan, then you understand this concept. Because with the last few years, the Vols haven't been historically good. They haven't been super exciting. But a passionate fan isn't just there for the championships and for the exciting moments. A passionate fan is there for the good, the bad, and the ugly, even when things aren't exciting. Now, bandwagon people, they're all about excitement. What's the new biggest thing? But passionate people are there when your team goes 0-10. Passionate people are there for the long run. See, this is why we don't need excited Christians and excited churches. Because following Jesus isn't always exciting. Man, our church experiences are hype and they're fun and I'm screaming and we're singing songs. We got a good band. That's hype, but following Jesus isn't always exciting, man. Sometimes following Jesus is boring because sometimes following Jesus means you staying home on Friday night when your buddies go out and drink. That ain't always fun, man. Sometimes following Jesus is hard because he's going to ask you to give up things that you didn't really want to give up before he asked you to give them up. Sometimes following Jesus is scary because he's going to ask you to take leaps of faith that you're not sure you were ready to take. Following Jesus is a lot of things, but I'll tell you what, it's not always exciting. Life is not always exciting. Church is not always exciting, and I get it. I'm not always excited to come to church either, and I'm the pastor here. I hope I can say that, and you guys not judge me for that. I get real vulnerable up here. I tell you things that I'm not supposed to tell you, but I tell you them anyways because I want you to hear them. I'm not always excited to come, man. Sometimes I wish I could just stay at home under the covers and watch it online and get a little bit of extra sleep. I'm not always excited about singing. I'm not always excited about getting up here and preaching. I'm not always excited about getting past my emotions and actually doing something I don't want to do in the moment. I'm not always excited, but what I'm learning to do is when I feel that blah starting to set in and starting to take over a little bit, when I start feeling that, instead of letting my excitement determine my passion, I'm trying to learn in this season of my life how to protect my passion because your excitement should not determine your passion. Dude, sometimes you're just going to have to decide to be passionate about God. Sometimes you're just going to have to decide to be passionate about that job that you prayed for that God gave you that you don't actually like anymore. Sometimes you're going to have to decide to be passionate about that relationship, or you're going to have to decide to be passionate about that homework even when you don't want to do it, and even when you're tired, and even when you're not excited. It's why I'm always interrupting the third song. You know when I do it. You got the first song, you got hosting, you got the second song, you got third song, you got about fourth of the way. 3/4 of the way. There we go. 3/4 of the way through the third song. What do? I jump up here and I say something really exciting to get us going. And I'm not just saying it because I like it and it's fun and I feel like I want to be on the stage and be a part of this moment. No. The reason, there's a reason behind why I always make sure that we're worshiping out of faith. And there's a reason behind why I'm always trying to get you guys to be loud and to clap and to raise your hands and to close your eyes and to talk back to me whenever I'm preaching. And it's because you got to learn, and we all have to learn how to put our passion in its place. We got to learn how to tell our passion where it belongs. You got to protect your passion. Man, I could see it in here today. Oh, and I loved it when I got up here and made that announcement because I saw passion. Haven't always seen passion like that here. Haven't always seen passion like that in church. And sometimes it cracks me up because I look back and I watch some of you and I can see that passion rising up on the inside of you. And sometimes you feel like you're getting held back a little bit because you feel that passion rising up on the inside of you, and there's something in you that just, every now and then when I'm preaching, you may just want to stand up and shout me down because I'm saying something that matters to you. And in the moment of worship, when that comes around, you feel that passion, and you want to close your eyes and lift your hands, and you want to maybe even you want to dance and just really worship freely like you can, and you feel that passion, and then all of a sudden you open your eyes, and this is what you see. Gone. Gone. And what happens is, even though you felt the passion rising up on the inside of you, you see everybody else who doesn't have that passion, and so what you do is you try and push it back down. But let me encourage you today, don't let anybody put a cap on your passion. If you're sitting around someone right now that's hindering your passion, then move. Don't sit next to them. Sit on the floor. If you're trying to worship around someone who's holding back your passion, you may need to get out in the aisle, get yourself some elbow. Better yet, you can come down front with me, and I'll bring Daniel down here with us, and we'll lead the way. We'll go for it. Don't you ever be embarrassed by what you're passionate about. Don't you ever be embarrassed by what God's told you to do, man. You're people of passion. It's not who I'm trying to hopefully turn you into. It's who you are. It's who you were made to be. God didn't make you to be boring. I mean, I don't know another word to use. He didn't make you to be average. He didn't make you to be... God created you with passion. It's on the inside of you, every single person in here. You got it. It doesn't matter who supports you. It doesn't matter who believes in you. It doesn't matter who's willing to walk into that temple with you, Jesus. If God's asked you to go in there and do it, you better go in there and you better do it with all the passion. Even if it makes some people around you feel uncomfortable, you better do it with passion. Even if it causes a scene, you better do it with passion, because the truth is, passion always makes a scene. Passion always makes a scene. Jesus walked into the temple and he started kicking stuff over and screaming. He made a scene. I guarantee you his disciples that were there with him were like, they weren't in there doing it with him. Notice, that's not a part of the story. They're watching. Those disciples undoubtedly were sitting there watching that feeling so uncomfortable. That's okay though. Because when passionate people get around lame and apathetic and lethargic and dull people, they always get uncomfortable. No one's ever comfortable. No one who's lacking passion is ever comfortable around somebody who's passionate. People may not like it, but that's got to be okay, because you're not passionate for them anyways. It's never been about the people. It's never been about who they're passionate about. It's about you. Jesus didn't let the temperature of his surroundings determine his temperature. Concerning your passion, you got to be a thermostat, not a thermometer. Okay? Let me explain this, and I've said this here before, but thermometers blend in and go with the flow, and thermometers reflect the temperature of their surroundings. And I believe in this story, by doing this, Jesus is telling us, I don't need you to be a thermometer, I need you to be a thermostat. Because thermometers reflect the temperature of their surroundings, but thermostats change the temperature of their surroundings. If you're in a cold, dry, you might just want to crank up the heat a little bit and start changing the temperature, man. It's time for some of you to start changing the temperature in your families. And it's time for some of you to start changing the temperature in your workplace. And it's time for some of us to start changing the temperature at our school and at our campuses. Man, we got to bring up the heat. You change the temperature. That's right, man. You change the temperature of your marriage. You change the temperature of your bank account. You change the temperature of your devotional life. You do it. Jesus walked in there and he set the temperature. We got to be people who set the temperature. Why? Because we're consumed with passion. He was consumed with passion. There is no substitute for passion. Some of you college kids are about to graduate or already graduated. You don't feel like you're good enough for the job you're looking for. You don't feel like you're skilled enough. but there is no substitute for passion. You may not be skilled enough, but you can bring passion to the table. Passion can open doors for you that skill never will. A skilled person with no passion, they can get the job done. But a passionate person who's willing to learn, that person can change the world. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm here to change the world, man. I'm not here to be average. I'm here to do something great. I'm here to be a great pastor. I'm here to be a great father. I'm here to be a great husband. I'm here to be a great friend. I'm here to be a great follower of Jesus. I may not have natural ability. I may not have the looks. I may not have the bank account. I may not have the experience. Oh, but one thing I got, I promise you, I got passion, baby. Is there anybody in the room who says you got some passion? Is there anybody in here who says in 2019, I'm walking out with the most passion that I've ever had? If that's you, I want you to stand up on your feet all across the room. We got to be people of passion. You got to protect your passion. Now, of course, my prayer for you is that you would be passionate about every area of your life, your marriage, your kids, your health, your finances, loving other people, your walk with God, your calling, all of it. But at the end of the day, none of that should take priority. And I mean none of that should take priority over our passionate pursuit of God Himself. We should be passionately loving Him more, passionately hearing Him better, passionately following Him closer, passionately giving up more and more of us so that we can obtain more and more of Him. The irony of passion is that if you'll protect your passion for the Lord, and if that becomes first priority, that'll overflow into the rest of your life on its own. And so today, as a response to the call of protecting your passion, we're gonna sing the first song that we sang today. But this time, I don't just want you to sing. I want you to worship. I want you to go for it. I want you to declare this with the greatest amount of passion that you can muster up, even if it's in faith. And I'm telling you, as you do, I believe that the Holy Ghost Himself is going to come in this room and He's going to begin igniting some fresh passion and uncovering some fresh fire that you haven't seen in a long time. And for some of you, He's going to begin speaking to you about areas of your life that have been pulling away your passion from areas that matter, and this is going to be an opportunity to crucify those and to lay those down in pursuit of Him. So if today you're ready for God to begin uncovering a fresh passion and for God to begin stoking a fresh fire, then I want you to shoot both of your hands up as high as you can. I'm not talking about some sissy. No, man, we're passionate about God. Are you kidding me? Hands up all across. Come on, with eyes closed, so that this moment is about you and you alone. If you're ready for some fresh passion, then I want you guys to pray this prayer with me. I'll pray and you guys repeat it after me. Here we go. Jesus, today, I want more of you. I want to burn for you. And I want to experience true passion in every area of my life. Fill me up. Come on, in Jesus' name, let's sing this together.